everybody. I'm Sundance Senior Programmer Heidi Zwicker, and I'm so happy to welcome back to the stage the directors of Downhill, Nat Faxon and Jim Rash. Off with the first question. If at any point you have a question, please just raise your hand. We would love to hear from you. You guys have done such a beautiful job translating a film that I think a lot of us already loved, Force Majeure, and finding new territory and nuance in it. I was really curious, what was most important to you when you decided to take on this project in terms of putting your own stamp on this story?
Well, I think it was important to us. Obviously, we were fans of the movie, and it's a Herculean task to approach this and take this American take on it. But we knew that the bones of what's in Force Majeure are so important to preserve, and there's this cringe, this awkwardness, we're in this moment of high tension, and we just love translating that. And obviously, we have an added element of Americans in a foreign land. When we're on vacation, there's vulnerability, and then when there's a language barrier, there's vulnerability. And there was this wonderful way to see slightly different characters in Force Majeure going through a similar incident and just sort of play out with that without losing the spirit of Force Majeure.
All right, do we have questions from the audience? Yes, right there.
You're welcome, Sam.
So yeah, this is a question about the significance of that very last moment when the snow falls.
No, you want to talk?
No.
Be quiet. The significance was to leave a certain amount of ambiguity in the film and leave it open for your interpretation. We didn't want to approach this as Rosie, the character Rosie says, as sort of a black and white story that we were telling. We wanted it to have a kind of grayness, and we felt that perhaps that ending achieved that purpose. Oh, well, thank you for that applause.
Sam, I just want you to know that when I was in the 4th grade, I wrote an essay that I was going to be a professional soccer player and a comedian in the off-season. So, dreams can come true.
Yes, way in the back.
How long did it take you to learn to ski like that?
How long did it take?
Who are you talking to?
Julia, I mean, except for my tumble, the stunt, we all did our own skiing.
Yeah.
And Julia had some expert terrain.
Well, I can't say that myself, of course.
And I skied like a very solid intermediate skier. So,
I would like to give a shout out to Ammon, one of our kids here, who had never been on skis prior to this film.
Ammon, who has
the film
I hate skiing
was way
stage.
better than you will.
Yeah.
Absolutely, no question.
We actually got to a place where he was so good when we shot the little scene where he's doing the pizza wedge down. We had to tell him to get worse.
Yes, please.
This is an excellent question.
Be very
careful.
For those that didn't hear it, this was a question for the cast about which director they felt did more work.
Well, one of them worked incredibly hard, and the other one was very effective.
I've never worked with directors who bring their Oscar to set every day, and with any objection that any of the actors would have to any of their direction, they just point at the Oscar. So,
Know your place, Will, know your place.
and trust me, I do, around you guys.
They had both of their faces engraved on the face of the Oscar, so half is Jim and half is Nat.
It was easy not to confuse them thanks to my teeth.
Feels like I'd like to hear more about what you thought about it. Feels like people are being quiet down there.
Right. No, it's all good. It was actually, all kidding aside, it was actually a really lovely experience to work with a directing team, which I had never done in my life before. And they worked together, and I hope you won't blush when I say this, but they worked together quite well. And, I think that's my phone. Can someone get that? So we were very lucky to have two for the price of one. It was a good deal for us, for sure.
Is there a question back there in the balcony?
Hi, my name is Joseph. I wanted to ask for the actors, had you guys seen the original film before you got on the project? And then for the directors, how did you guys decide what to change for this version of the film?
So for the actors, had you seen Force Majeure before? And for the directors, what did you decide to change for this version?
No.
Yes, I've seen it. I was in it. But I think you made a new movie. And I can't talk for your choices, but it feels like new people experience the same thing. So I think it stands on its own skis.
Yeah, Force Majeure is like one of my top 5 favorite films ever. So this is it was such an exciting thing to remake it, but in a totally new way with this crew. Who else wants to speak?
I hated Force Majeure, and I thought we needed to fix it.
How was that? I thought it was a real stinkeroonie. And, let's get some good old American elbow grease in there. Get under the hood of that sucker and put in some horsepower.
I think we really did want to, in approaching this, Jesse Armstrong is one of the writers who did this adaptation, and you may know him from the show Succession on HBO. And we all felt very protective of the bones of the original story, and then we wanted to sort of approach it. Of course, by making it Americans Abroad, it does change the story, for sure. And additionally, we wanted to sort of open up certain areas, specifically the role that I played, to make her maybe not so, a little bit flawed, shall we say, and to make it, again, not a black and white story, but quite gray, and that was one area, right?
In a way to use the Billy character to open up the POV from the other side.
Right.
So we really were The weird, Force Majeure and Downhill, there's this epicenter of this, intense fight scene, this awkward 11-page fight scene. And we shot that, and we would just run it from beginning to end over and over, and we shot that for for 3 days. We did that one scene, and they did it much like a play. And I think Force Majeure and Downhill share this sort of play within the movie. You're watching two people's hearts hopefully change, maybe come back to each other. So taking Force Majeure, we knew with Downhill, we had this epicenter of this fight, which was tonally very important to the movie, because that's where drama and comedy sort of do this ballet, because we're cringing and nervous, being Zach and Rosie is us. And you have these moments of levity, but also there's this nervous release, which I think a lot of people with Force Majeure, the wonderfulness of it was, some people would go, oh my God, that was the funniest thing. And some people go, I didn't find it funny at all, for the right reasons. In other words, they were having the same experience that you'd want. So we took that fight and we made sure, or hopefully made sure, that everything out there played within that world. That said, we were adding a female's point of view a little bit more than Force Majeure, which definitely deals with cowardice, masculinity, in the face of this running away. We kept that with Pete, but then we wanted to make sure that we were talking about an American married couple trying to figure out how we operate in a couple, yet hold on to who we are as a person. Which is why Billy, which is something we wanted to add, having these other characters float into her life to question the sexual nature of Billy. Is she taking care of herself as a mom, as a professional lawyer? And this is the longest answer. I think for me, film began with an idea. And you too can make a movie with an idea.
Guys, Jim worked the hardest.
I just answered that question and probably 10 other questions.
I think, should we repeat the question just so we can get it?
I am so sorry to say that we are
You
now
come into this
actually
world
out of
alone.
time.
Film is about ideas.
Thank you so
Collaborating.
Hold on, 1 second.
Thank you so much, Nat and Jim, and the entire cast of Downhill for being here. Thank you all for coming.